Are you a sex worker looking to build a new website or a website redesign? Then you'll want to consider Fox Digital. They did a fantastic job designing my website, Stripped by Sia. If you want your website done, mention that you're a listener of the show at foxdigital.design for 20% off. Tell them I sent ya. Welcome back to another episode of Stripped by Sia, your podcast for strippers, sex workers, and all the fancy naked people in between. I am your host, Steph Sia, aka Kimchi on stage. Again, as mentioned in other episodes, I don't know what I'm dancing next. I also don't really care that much either. I'm hoping to kickstart camming again as well at some point now that my life is starting to slow down a little bit. I should be coming home from a vacation when this is released, so I will have all the free time in the world. It's also my birthday week. If you want to send a tip, please do. There are links for that, but go check it out. I don't like posting my own OnlyFans link on here, but if you really want to, you can do that. It's Sia on camera. That is me, because I am a digital content creator, ex-sugar baby, dancer, and host of the show. This show is all about destigmatizing sex work, and by doing that, I really hope to normalize this profession one day. Also, to bring a lot of perspective into the picture and bring on real life people, real life sex workers, and their own voices to tell their stories about how they live their lives, how we conduct business, and just to paint a really accurate portrayal of what sex work is, because there's a lot of people saying stuff that is not accurate and is wildly glamorized and sensationalized and all the things. And I don't have to go list them all out, but you know what I'm talking about. So that is that. New episodes every single Sunday. And including this episode, where we have a really great episode. This is part 2 of breast augmentation surgery. So last week was all about, breast implants 101. What should you do to prepare pre, during, and post surgery? Things you should consider, risk factors and safety, finding a surgeon, all that kind of stuff before you go under the knife and whatnot. Because there was a lot of interest and curiosity with this topic, I couldn't put them all in one episode. And there were so many people that were on that Twitter thread. They were like, I want to come on the show and blah, blah, blah. But also I want to share perspective, because it's not all positive all the time. Unfortunately, there are things that can go wrong, and it would be really irresponsible of me to be like sunshine and rainbows and everything's great. And, at some point, maybe it will be at that point, but sometimes things can go horribly wrong or complicated or challenging. So this episode will include 2 creators, people that are in the adult industry, including my guest who is patiently waiting here, which I will soon announce, and we're going to get into her story real soon, that will share their experiences on what happened with them post surgery, post implants. We're talking specifically about, losing some fans because your image has obviously and physically changed. And we're also talking about, on the other second half of the episode, tail end of the episode, talking about infection, what can go wrong there, and certain severe complications that can happen with surgery, because you are doing a surgery to your body. Things like that can happen. There are risks that your surgeon does go through, and what happens if that actually happens to you. So we'll be talking a couple times with a couple of creators on that. But before we get started there, just want to shout out Patreon people. So I do have a Patreon, as you know. If you don't know, please support. Basically, all of your money goes to upgrading my equipment, my website hosting, and for the ability to attend industry events. Basically, that's where all the money is going. So very, very transparent about that. Just wanted to say hello to those who are on the second and top tier of my Patreon. So just saying hello to Snoo Snoo, Justin Erickson, Ted McGuire, Geyser, Selena Money, Moxie Mayhem, Eric Arajo, B. York, and Amy Taylor. Y'all are great. Thanks for being a patron of the show and supporting. Your support helps finance the website, strippedbysia.com, which also is made by a friend of mine who supports sex workers and is looking to give listeners of the show 20% off new builds or rebrands and stuff like that. So if you want to contact him, his name is Anthony Joe from Fox Digital. You can contact him at foxdigital.design if you're interested in getting a website made. And then last but not least, just saying hello to the network. It's Skyhawk After Dark. It is a network of related adult industry podcasts and videocasts, shows that are similar like mine, with guests that you might have heard on the show and stuff like that. It is Skyhawk After Dark TV. If that's something that interests you, go check them out. So, as I was mentioning, we do have guest 1 out of 2 that is here with me in the room, virtually in the room. Her name is Maiia Bates, and she obviously has had a wonderful breast augmentation surgery, and she's here to share her truth on what happened to her in terms of, like, you know, surgery happens, we're changing our body, it's our body, which is great, but there are sometimes some consequences that come with that, including losing some of your biggest fans, your biggest tippers, your whales, and stuff like that. So just want to hear a little bit about her story and what happened with that, because that is something that is very real, whether you are rebranding, whether you're going over a surgery and whatnot. This can happen at any point in either of our careers. So first of all, Maiia, it's lovely to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, finally.
Nice,
and you've been so patiently waiting as I'm rambling on forever. It's lovely to meet you. I'm stoked to have you here. And the reason I want to bring you on the show is because there's definitely a lot of interest with one of the comments that you wrote on that thread, because there was a lot of like, pick me, I want to be on the show. But also, like, I really want to hear the flip side of things in terms of, like, yeah, getting implants is great, but then sometimes not everyone thinks it's great. So, yeah.
I think it's important to look at, all the different things. Like, you've already touched on potential complications and like, terrible things that can go wrong, which you'll talk to someone else about. But like, even just finding the right surgeon is important, getting multiple opinions if you need to, that sort of thing. But it encompasses a lot of aspects of your life that you maybe don't go into thinking about. I think that I'm just sort of a sassy type of cam person. I actually don't cam anymore. I used to. But that was, I was live on cam for several years before I got my implants, and it wasn't a surprise. Like, they all knew it was coming. They all helped fundraise for it. So it was a little shocking to me when within 6 months of getting my implants, my biggest tipper for several years dropped off. And it wasn't, I don't think, actually really entirely just about the boobs. I think that I did it. My primary reason for getting my implants was a confidence thing.
Yeah.
I didn't like the way my boobs looked, and I wanted them to look a different way. And like, it really was that simple for me. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, then I was even more, sassy and confident, and whatever. That whole, worry of mine was gone. And so I think that what it boiled down to for him, which is a complex, like, psychological thing to dive into, was, why do you not like me now that I am more confident with myself? Like, being more into somebody who you kind of are keeping down a little bit is like a weird vibe looking at it like that. But
now that you mentioned that is a little strange. Yeah, I mean, that can be really upsetting when that happens too. And like, and you mentioned, like, this is not just like the one fan. There was, like, might be a few of them that kind of dropped off too. And like, when your fans get accustomed to you a certain way, looking like a certain way, acting like a certain way, then they kind of think that they, and I'm saying some quotations, know you. Yeah, you're like nodding. Yeah.
I was a pretty open book as a cam person, and I would say that who I am in real life is very, very similar to my cam persona. But I do always laugh when they're like, "Oh, I know you," and I'm like,
"Do you?" Right?
I mean, we all have our little secrets. But from a superficial standpoint about the boobs and fans that are like, oh, well, I like prefer natural breasts or I prefer whatever, that's okay. That's fine. You have your preferences like that. I'm not gonna say that you like, I don't know, have to like me for my personality. But I thought that's why we were all pals. So it's
Yeah.
weird. It was just a weird experience for somebody who I thought I knew. So we say like, LOL, you guys think you know us, but I think we do get to know our fans pretty well, especially like long-term companionship type folks like this person was with me.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess not also. So he's getting the last laugh on that one, I think.
Yeah, it's just like really sad when that shifts. But like, I mean, relationships, whether they are a fan to a model relationship, whether they're personal relationships, friendships and stuff, they can shift over time. And some people just don't like that anymore. And I'm just wondering, like, did he just like ghost you when this happened? Or like, was there like a formal goodbye? Was there like any kind of closure or anything like that? Or like, can you take us back to that time if it's not too
Um,
painful?
my favorite part about the whole thing is when I asked him to change his name. So he didn't ghost me, but he like just like slowly was like less and less and less and less interactive with me. And then he was the type of person who'd be like, you know, subscribe to all the places and see me on cam and you know whatever. Some people just subscribe to me on wherever, you know, and that's as far as they go. So when I noticed that he's not subscribed to me on OnlyFans anymore at a certain point, and I'm like, okay, great, cool. We're like, this is really gonna fade off, and I don't really have to have like a whole confrontation about it. That's great. But his name was still Maia's whatever his name. And so
Oh.
I wrote him a nice message, and actually because I was rebranding in all of that, and I was like, hey, I don't want fans to have my name in their thing anymore. It was part of my chat room thing, you know, like people do that in your cam room, but it had carried over into other places like Twitter even. And so I was asking everyone, not just him, to not do that anymore. I was trying to get away from that. And when I sent him the same message that quite frankly, it was copy and pasted to everybody who needed to receive it, and then changed a smidge per person.
Yeah, personalized.
He was like, I don't even use this. And if I see fit that I need to change this in the future, then I will. Otherwise, you know, like, don't worry about it. And he tried to like just put me off like that. Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I was like,
Wow.
okay, the audacity of your behavior is just so strange. It's so strange. The way you have talked to me every single day for several years, and now it was weird. It was weird.
Yeah, that can be really upsetting though, because like as much as like our fans love us, which is great, but like God bless our fans, that's wonderful. Sometimes like when you do have fans that you've known for several years and you've built a rapport with them, and it's like a different kind of relationship than the ones that like are just popping in here and there and stuff like that. So
It's true.
yeah, like I don't know, were you a little bit hurt by any of this? I know, like, and it's okay to say that you were, because that it's the deep cut
Well, we're still
sometimes.
talking about it now. I mean,
Oh.
so my boobs are 5 years old by the time this episode airs, and so I said that he kind of like dropped off within like about 6 months or so of me getting them. Um, And so that's like 4 years ago, and I'm still bummed out about it because sometimes our fans do things. Actually, cam girls performers can do this too, where they just like disappear out of
Hmm.
our lives. And we're like, hey, are you like alive? Are you okay? And I don't mean to pry, but like you had friends out here, you know. And so for me, in the way that I built my cam community, which is very different for me now, I don't have quite the same vibe going on in my community. Was we were genuine friends. Like some
Hmm.
people in my community knew each other outside of Camland.
I
They
love
would
that.
be Snapchat buddies or get a room together during AVN, share a hotel room
Yeah.
for conventions and stuff like that, which I love that. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So yeah, I am hurt by it because it was so personal. It was so incredibly like pointedly about that. And
Yeah.
it bummed me out because I actually wish I got them sooner. Love them so much. Like it's such a positive thing in my life. And for it to have such a negative effect on somebody that was so tight knit in my community was just it. Yeah, it's a big bummer. It's a big
Yeah,
bummer.
that's so real. That's so real. And like when you're like, yeah, some cam girls like fall off face of the planet. That's me. Although I'm very baby camera, but I'm like life happens. Like I got married, like was just on vacation for a lot this summer and just enjoying myself. And I was like, I'm not keeping to my schedule. And then I've had like some people like find me on Twitter and they're like, are you ever coming back to Streammate? I'm like, I will eventually, but like, yeah, it's just life has shifted and stuff too. So it could definitely go both ways. But back to you, Maiia, back to you. Not making this about me, but I mean, there's a certain thing sometimes too, like when you do build this rapport with some of your regulars, it's kind of, and I don't know if this goes for you, but for myself, like when I'm at the club and some of my regulars come in, I just know, okay, guaranteed money. Like I already know what they're going to tip me. Like this is going to be great. It's a nice feeling to have those regulars come in. And on dead days, I will say yes. Really relying on those regulars to come in, be like, are you coming into the club tonight? Like it's dead. But I mean, there's also a degree of risk that can come with, a certain reliance or codependency. Yeah, you're nodding your head. That comes with these big
Yeah.
whales.
So that's another part of that too, is that it sucks that it was somebody who was so generous in their contributions to my everything I did. And so that it begs that mention don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Like diversifying your income is the most intelligent thing we all can do, and this sort of thing. Like you mentioned, you've got the stuff in the club, and you've got Streammate, and you have Patreon, you have all these other places where you're getting income from, and me as well. So did it completely ruin my whole situation? No, it didn't, because I had been there before, having someone who is such a large tipper and, really being reliant on that. So I'm sure he would love to know that he like ruined several months of my life rebuilding after he disappeared, but he didn't. That's not how that went. So, we can't, depend on anything now. My God, you can't even depend on like your Twitter being a place where you, oh my God,
Can't rely on anything anymore. Honestly, Streammate has been kind of sad. Like in summer when I was like last on there, I was like, yeah, it's kind of slow right now. I'm just gonna take a break.
I'm planning to do a live show series. So I absolutely do not have the time anymore to cam like I used to. That was my full-time thing, and it was like every night I would get on for hours and just stay till I was done. And that's not my life anymore. But so I'm planning a series of live shows for a specific thing, and I'm looking at MFC and what's going on in there, and I'm like, I don't know if
I know.
I don't know if I'm gonna go and do the thing there again. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I
Things
know.
changed a lot. I think the pandemic, that period of time really changed online stuff so much that I have a bit of imposter syndrome now because I feel like a beginner in certain areas, but then also camming has changed so much that I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to use OBS. Like what
Yeah.
is this piece of technology?
Girl, you and me both. I mean, going back to you, Maiia, and going back to this conversation again, like you were talking about rebuilding, like and kind of like moving on from these whales, these tippers and stuff too. What do you think is maybe like the hardest part about rebuilding? I mean, rebuilding, period, can be really challenging, starting from scratch.
I it's really easy to say like, oh, like one door closes, another door opens, cheesy stuff like that. It's true. It is like, that frees up a lot of time and energy that you're giving to somebody else to put somewhere else. But I think the hardest or like the most anxiety part of that for me is the financial portion of it, where if you knew you could depend on this over here but now that's gone, there is some financial insecurity and like worry about how that's going to get filled in. And that really, every time I think, for me, I have a void like that, it's like, all right, well, you just need to go post a damn picture,
Yeah.
go work, go do a thing. And like every time you put something out, it's something, it might not be immediate, but go to work, go do the thing.
Yeah.
It'll work itself out. And it's easy to say like, don't worry about it.
I
But
know.
the more we sit around and worry, that energy is not appealing to new people.
Totally. Yeah, I hear you. I know that there was one question that came in from the audience as well, that they were curious about too, in terms of your specific situation, post surgery. But did the amount of business you gained balance out what was lost eventually?
Yes, and then some.
Okay.
I think that we're talking about one person, really, ultimately. I think a few people do actually like me for my rockin' personality.
Yes,
And
of course.
they're still around, but they're not as big of tippers because it did change my physical aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
And everyone can have their preferences. But in the long run, I produce more content. I'm more confident in my own skin. I like the way that everything looks. And so I do a better job at my job. And so, yeah, it did. In the end, yep, it really did. And it also forced me to sense that person. I actually, I really don't have a whale anymore. That's like not a thing that I focus my time on. I have a few people that get more time and attention, and therefore I get, higher pay from those few people, but I'm not available in that way anymore. So it's just with rebranding and refocusing and whatever, my time is not on these like companionship, long term, everyday chatting, like very time consuming things anymore. So I have more time to do
Yeah.
actual work.
Yeah, totally. And that's totally okay, because business shifts, people's businesses change over time. They can transform and evolve into other things, and sometimes you're starting to peel back as well, and you're focusing on other shit, and sometimes it's not even in this industry anymore as well. So, which I think is super great. But I mean, this is really great to hear your side of the story, and also to share that perspective, and also like lessons learned, because I feel like so much of this content that you're sharing, and this information that you're sharing is so relatable, and so many people, including myself, can definitely relate to a story like yours. So I'm glad that you're able to share that with
Well,
us.
thank you. I'm, happy to be a cautionary tale, I suppose, for the young babies.
Yeah, lots
I
of
think
babies out
do
there.
it. I think my advice is do it though. Like, if you want big fake titties, go get big fake titties. I mean,
Hell yes.
I have a friend who doesn't really understand my implants. She's like, I don't, but and she doesn't know what I do. Because
Mm,
she could not handle it. So
yeah.
these like all of these pieces of this puzzle don't really make sense for her, and so she's like, but I just don't understand. So first she just didn't understand, and I'm like, I just want big fake boobs. But then she started in on this like, oh, but your boobs look so good in that. Oh, we've had boobs like that. I'm like, go buy some. You
Yeah.
have, you just march your little bank account down to a surgeon's office and like have a field day. Like, that's why when she made that comment like, oh, boobs look so good in that, wish I had boobs like that, I was like, I still don't understand why it doesn't make sense for you.
Yeah, and honestly, it doesn't even matter. Like, it shouldn't matter to her anyways, because like, it's at the end of the day, it's your body, it's your decision. You can do whatever the hell you want. It's like, why is that anybody's business except for yours,
There you
right?
go.
Mic
There
drop.
you go.
But
People on the internet, my gosh, just like don't comment. You look perfect the way you are. That whole vibe. No, no.
yeah,
Just don't say it. Just don't even say that.
we did not welcome your opinion because your opinion wasn't
No.
asked for. I get you,
But it
girl.
didn't read the room. It didn't go with the vibe, you know? What we were talking about here.
But Maiia, before I let you go, where can we all find you if you want to be found?
Ooh, MaiaBates.info is my website and my hub for all the things because, as we know, things disappear.
Yes, they
So,
do.
ladies, make yourself a website so you have a home base of things. Allmylinks.com/Maiia, Maiia.
All right, so that was Maiia Bates' story on how things can go wrong, how things can go the other way when you have a pretty major surgery that alters your body in very positive ways, but also I just wanted to demonstrate the negative ways that it can affect your fans, how can that in turn can affect your income. I do want to introduce the next guest. It is Joelle Rose, or Joey as I like to call her. And Joey is telling us a different side of the coin here. And again, responsible podcasting, responsible journalism here. I wanted to demonstrate that, complications can arise. And we always hear these stories of botched surgeries and things that might happen, things that might get complicated. And there's always a risk can arise basically with any kind of surgery or any kind of procedure that you do. But with Joey's story, she will be telling us just how complicated things can get, and how that can really produce a domino effect on your self-confidence, your mental well-being, your fans, the way you work, how you portray yourself, all the things. I'm not going to spoil anything here, so here is Joelle Rose.
Hi, my name is Joelle Rose. I have been webcamming for almost 3 years now in February. I got into the industry of NSFW work because I needed to be working from home at the time, and it kind of worked with my schedule and my needs of what I kind of needed for myself. I then went on to get some alterations into my body, which is what we're here to talk about today, or I should say replacement for what I already had.
Yeah, definitely. We are going to definitely talk about, for this part of the conversation, we're going to be talking and addressing risk that comes with breast augmentation or breast implant surgery, infection and stuff too, and this goes for any kind of surgery. There's always going to be some kind of risk, whether it is something to do with your breast or something else, or some infection as well. So I know just like from the top of my head and like some quick Google searches, for breast implant surgery, some of the risks involved there could be like scar tissue, infections, as we're going to talk about, change in nipple and breast sensation, implant ruptures, lymphoma, but also some like emotional and mental stuff as well, in terms of like anxiety, depression, fatigue, stuff like that. And I would assume the surgeon would probably discuss this with you during your consultation. Is that kind of when this conversation would happen?
Absolutely, but you kind of never think that these things are going to happen. It's a small risk. You do get put on antibiotics in the beginning to try to. It's so rare. I got my post-op infection 8 weeks post-op, which is so rare.
Wow.
So they put you on antibiotics for that first week, which is typically when something could arise because of bacteria and stuff on your skin and just anything that can happen. So I was supposed to be out of the woods when mine occurred, which is just something that is just almost unheard of, but obviously can happen. So, and being that mine was a replacement, I had a set for 20 years and no problem. So I was told, oh, the pocket's already there. This is the breeze for you. So I was expecting it to be even easier than the initial.
Right. And then, of course, the whatever percentage, 1% of this happening, unfortunately, happened to you. And I don't want to trigger anything, but like, and I will let you speak, but whatever you feel comfortable sharing, I'd love to use your story to kind of raise awareness on that, and also to caution folks that might be considering the surgery, like that this stuff does happen, unfortunately. So, yeah, wherever you'd like to start, Joey.
Sure. So to try to sum up a little bit, my incision opened up and started leaking, and I had swelling, which was my first indication of there was a problem. I was healing okay thus far. Of course, I immediately called my surgeon hysterical. He had explained to me that you can get an infection. First thing he said was, "Oh my God, I don't even know what to think of this. This is so rare that this would happen 8 weeks post-op."
Right.
So we immediately treated it with heavy duty antibiotics. I don't know, he didn't know what to make or think of it. Other than sometimes, obviously, no matter how much they scrub you down in surgery, there is bacteria on the surface of your skin. And at the time, COVID was coming around again, and they didn't know if there was COVID germs that got in and somehow caused this. We did try to treat it. We did drain it. They did send the culture out, which initially came back as staph infection, but nothing crazy, not
Yeah.
MRSA. They said nothing more than just what could have been on your skin that everybody has every day on their skin. Nothing crazy they
Right.
found in the. We then treated me. They sewed me back up again, treated heavy duty antibiotics. We thought again, I was almost out of the woods. Swelling was almost gone. And then I hit 103 fever. And the swelling got so bad that I couldn't turn
Oh
from
my
my
gosh.
side to the other in bed to turn myself over. And
Oh my gosh.
literally taking pictures of the thermometer and texting my surgeon like Mayday, Mayday. And it was just wild because we really thought I had turned the corner and that I was beating this infection. However, he was pretty suspicious in the beginning that it was going to be rare if I did beat the infection without losing the implant. So
Oh, wow.
he said, you immediately have to come in and get that implant out. Otherwise, nothing's going to treat that fever. There's nothing that, you can go to the hospital, we can put you on IV. That implant has to come out now. So the next morning with 102 fever, I was in his office suite having it removed under sweet air,
Oh my
not even under
gosh.
anesthesia. Yeah, because at this point I couldn't keep affording. Your insurance company doesn't pay for this. That's another thing. Your
Oh,
insurance company
yeah.
does not, because
Yeah,
this is
talk about
considered
that.
cosmetic, even though this was an infection. I wasn't asking them to pay for my implants. I paid for my implants already.
Right.
But they didn't wanted no part of having to pay for, sonogram I had to have and all the testing I had to have done. So they did
Oh, wow.
sweet air in the office and numbed me, obviously locally numbed me. But I felt the huge pressure of it. But he was correct, and that was the one thing. My fever went down. I was obviously, sore and my body had been through so much, but I did feel a lot better once it was out. The way it's explained to me through all the medical terms was there's a part of your breast that blood flow can't get to.
Okay.
So the antibiotics can't get up there to heal the infection. That's why he said it was rare I was going to beat this without losing the implant. Because if the antibiotics can't get up there, then the bacteria is just moving around the implant, and that's what causes the swelling in the fluid.
Oh my
So
gosh.
all in all, I had three procedures, 3 surgeries, and 5 rounds of heavy duty antibiotics. And then I had a post-op drain for 3 weeks in after they removed the implant, which I was not expecting or aware of. And I'm sure it's in the fine print of something that obviously things could go wrong, but that was almost as much a surprise to me as what was happening.
Yeah.
I don't know if I did mention this did happen after a rupture in February. So
Oh, no, you didn't talk about that. Did you
I
want us
never
to know
know.
about that?
Yeah, I can't believe I skipped that whole part. We can probably edit that. Go back.
Yeah.
It was from a rupture that we don't even know why it ruptured. So it was like from start to finish. This started in February, and I currently have an open wound that doesn't want to close, which is the issues I've been facing now. The implant's been out since June.
Wow. And it's now October.
and it's
a long
October. I
time.
still have a wound that just does not want to close. I'm currently now seeing a wound care specialist center. I have special kind of bandages and tape, which I mean, my bathroom's been a hospital pretty much since February, March when I started having the surgeries to have the replacement.
Oh
So,
my
so
gosh.
yeah, 3 surgeries, drains, antibiotics, all for a replacement from 2 years ago that should have just went okay. To then a rupture a year and a half later, and then to this rare post-op infection. When this should have not, it's supposed to be easy peasy replacements.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, but again, it's just to strengthen this whole notion of like this can literally happen to anyone.
Yes.
And like the fact that this was your second set of implants too, like you
And the
already went
first
through the
set,
whole
I would have
thing.
never had one negative thing to say about the
Yeah.
first set if I would have ever been asked. And that's why I wanted to be able to shed some light on, even though it is so rare, physically what I've gone through. I live alone, so I had to take care of myself through all these surgeries and everything, and the bandages. The reason they put the drain in, this is pretty important to know how bad it could get to try to heal. The reason he left the drain is because he knew I lived alone and had to take care of myself. He knew I was
Hmm.
in the industry as well. He knew what this meant to me, losing this breast. It was a very big emotional journey as well.
Oh
But they
yeah.
left the drain in because the only alternative was I would have had to go to his office every day and they have to pack it. And it's painful. And you have to go to the doctor, you have to go to their office every single day. And I don't drive. So he knew that this was going to be a huge complication for me. So
Hmm.
that's why I had the post-operative drain for 3 weeks afterwards, which was
Oh
not
wow.
pleasant. I was on shower restriction. I couldn't get it wet in the shower, so I would be like trying to put a Ziploc bag over, and then forget. It looks terrible because I have one boob with an implant. It's been here. That's a replacement 2 years now, and then this one's gone. This can't get replaced should I choose to. Obviously, I'm going to have to choose to do something because I can't have one and not the other. It's still going
Right.
to be months and months of healing before I can even get a replacement. That's once it closes. Mine's not closing for
Oh.
whatever reason. They've said, it's in a tough area because it's in the crease
Hmm.
is where the cut was. I don't know if it was so much because there is a lot of scar tissue because my first step was when I was 22 years old. I'm 46. So
Hmm.
all the years of scar tissue does come into play. And a lot of times why we have to get the replacements because they start, that's why I got my replacements after 20 years was because it was starting to like indent and wasn't,
Yeah, it happens. And some people don't think about the long term as well, how this can affect your body.
I never
Like,
did.
what about like maintenance and care? No one speaks about that. Like, in terms of replacement, like, how often is it recommend that you replace it? Hopefully, like,
From
is
what
it
they're
like,
saying now, I was back in my first set. Obviously, times were different. They recommended different. What they say now is saline should be okay. Which thank God I did have saline because when I did have the rupture, silicone is very bad for you. So I would have had a
right?
problem right then and there. So saline, they say you can keep for as long as you want, with as long as there's no complications.
Hmm.
Silicone, they say, has to be every 10 years.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
not sure about the new gel ones because I'm not that
Right.
familiar with how those work. I'm seeing that a lot of people are getting those now. Um, but yeah, I mean, you have to at least always consider at least in 10 years reevaluating it. Of course, when I
Exactly.
decided to get my initial set, I just wanted them then. And over the years, well, I'll get to that later. I'll worry about that when and then that time comes, and that time comes, and that time comes. And I still don't have answers as to, you know, if I'm having issues because of scar tissue. No one's been able to give me clear answers on how I got such a serious post-op infection 8 weeks later.
Right.
A rupture obviously can happen.
Hmm.
I did happen to have had my mammo in October. My rupture was in February. My biggest fear of getting a mammo was that my boobs would pop. And
Yeah.
one popped in February. It is possible you can have a slow leak, they said, without knowing.
Oh, I did not know
Yes.
that was a thing either.
Yes, you can have, especially with saline, it's not making you sick, so you don't know. And if it's not a drastic, and even so, from the initial when I woke up and realized mine was ruptured, from then to about another week later, because they had to go through the warranty company to contact them to get me a new implant. I had to pay for the anesthesia for that, which I did. While I waited for that, it did deflate more and more. But because it was saline, I didn't get sick, and I didn't have to have that fear of getting sick. I didn't love it.
Yeah.
I didn't love it. And he was like, well, then I said, what would happen? Obviously you can't leave it in there, but the longer you do, the scar tissue encapsulates around it. So, you do have to get it taken out. You can't just leave it in there. Not that anybody would want to.
No, no, totally. And wow, that is so much has happened to you. First of all, Joey, I just want to say how truly sorry I am for just what it seems like a domino effect that has happened to you. And I mean, physical pain is one thing, physical changes to your body, especially being in this industry.
Oh, it
Did,
takes its toll.
yeah, I mean, did you want to address that? Did you want to talk about that a little bit if you're open to it?
Yeah, I mean, my surgeon has worked, he has a very good reputation. He says, I've worked on girls obviously in the industry, you just kind of hide it with a scarf. We had this conversation in June with Scarf Guy. It's June. It's 90
Yeah,
degrees out. Like, at the time, this is my full-time job is to be a webcam model every single day. It's not cute to hide it month after month after month after month and hope that everybody's going to love me enough. And not to
yeah,
mention what I'm looking at. And, there were people that adored me enough that were like, don't worry about it. Like, we don't care. We love you. And I'm like, I care.
yeah,
There's a huge significant difference. And then obviously what I didn't expect either is the fat is distributing out of my armpit as if there's no separation anymore. And I kind of, my armpit's different on this side than that side. And I guess it makes sense because for 20 something years, I had an implant in there and your muscles stretched out for all those years. There's a pocket that's been there. And now there's no implant. And all the tissue is trying to find like a place to go.
yeah, yeah,
So I'm lucky enough that I can angle it in photos and everything, but I can't in person. I've modeled for years, fashion and boudoir, and I have not done a single. I was doing some shoots as I was healing, minimal shoots. But as soon as I started having issues, and then once I lost the implant, I haven't done any shoots either. It hurts to even put, like, I bought those plastic things to put in, so at least in a shirt, I don't look like a lopsided in public. But
mm-hmm.
pushing on it, believe it, the tissue is still so sore. It's when I push on it, it's like I worked out, sore.
Yeah.
Like you're at the gym and you did chest.
Wow.
They do say that the reason it takes 6 months from the time you have a removal for a replacement to go in, which the implant I got, which was brand new, that's gone. That's never could go back in. It's on me to pay for this new implant, by the way. I would have to pay
Oh
for
my
this
gosh, really?
whole new implant and the anesthesia. Yeah, nobody's covering it. Nobody cares.
Oh my gosh.
Should I just do that? And they do. I was told from the beginning 6 months it takes for your tissue to heal before. He said, and if you try too soon, you try 3 months. If you were doing great, which I clearly haven't been, I don't even have my incision closed. But say you did wonderful and great. If you did it too soon, he said you could be back to square one.
Yeah,
like I would end up sick again and swollen again, and then the same, like it would have made me sick again, and I would have had to get it taken out if you choose to do it too soon.
Yeah, and we don't want that. We don't want you to go through
Right.
any more of this trauma. Oh gosh.
So emotionally, it's losing part of your body.
Yeah, I
It's
was just gonna
losing part
say,
of your
talk
body.
about the emotions, because like even in this conversation, it just already sounds so emotional. I just can't imagine someone going through all of this and what it seems to sound like is just like one thing after the other. But I can't imagine what this can take on your emotional capacity. Can we also talk about that as well? Like, because that can
I
also
think
pretty
I
much be
try
what
to
decide.
remind myself that I have to have thick skin about it. In my shows, I've said to everybody, due to unfortunate circumstances, I'm still not going full topless because I don't feel comfortable. Nobody's really said anything directly that ever really hurt my feelings about it, because people could be mean online. But me looking at it and then also wondering what the future of it holds and all that mental, and then I think that I just kept reminding myself there's nothing I could do about it.
Yeah, it's
There's
very true.
nothing I could do about it,
Mm-hmm.
So it is what it is. It looks terrible, but for the next few months, until this incision even completely seals, I can't do anything. And now I'm left with wondering, do I take the other one out?
Right. And now these are
Or do
decisions
I
that you
get
have to
this,
think about.
or do I leave this one and do I get this one replaced and take the risk of this ever happening again, which I'm going to be terrified for.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like a really big, scary decision, because just like you wouldn't want to put yourself through that again. So I can understand that consideration of like, okay, well, maybe I might actually just have to take the other implant out as well, because I'm sure you modifying your show, and I'm sure you have many understanding fans, as you've mentioned, but like you've had
That
to
only goes on
shift
so
and
long.
change. Yeah, yeah, right?
Understandably, there's 100 girls coming on camera with perfect bodies.
Hmm. Gosh, and that, like it's a lot, because it's not just like this is happening to you, your body, your mental. This is also affecting your work.
You're
It's what else are you supposed to do?
100%. And then often people have said to me, all right, well, have you lawyered up yet? Because, you've lost out a lot this entire year from this.
Hmm.
I suffered a huge loss in the beginning of the year, and then the rupture happened 3 weeks later. So it couldn't have been worse timing for me personally in my life.
Yeah.
Financially, the toll that it's put me under, the anxiety of not knowing, even with it in my body, I didn't love it. All right, let's get the surgery and figure out what's going on.
Hmm.
I never imagined the extent it would be to heal, the drains. And then now I have anxiety over what the scar is going to look like, because it doesn't look good. It's discolored. It's not closing. It's not infected. It just is. That's the only answers I get. And I just
Hmm.
want to be able to put it behind me and
Yeah.
move on. And not, I feel like a circus freak. I'm always thinking everything's lopsided. And, I'm 46 years old. So my body's changed a lot these past few
Yeah.
years already, which we don't love.
Yeah.
And when you're on camera, and not only is you opening yourself up for the world to see, I'm seeing myself on camera every day. Most people are not looking in the mirror all day at themselves in
Yeah.
lingerie or naked. We do when we,
We do.
are in this, when we're filming or any of this part of this industry. You have to see it.
You have to, and you're faced with that. It's just like, well, what else am I supposed to do? And like, where else am I supposed to look? So, I mean, this was really, really eye-opening in terms of conversation, because like that's something you can't even prepare for, because it's not expected that this will ever happen to you or to happen to anyone and stuff too. Because
Right.
when you are planning for breast augmentation surgery, you are like saving and putting money aside for the time that you're going to take your time off. But because this was unprecedented and just was not planned, you're
Yeah. And
really
that's the
put
other
in a
thing. There was
pickle.
many times I thought, okay, so in a couple of weeks I should be back to being able to move around the bed or the couch or the floor good enough. And then that wasn't happening. And then it wasn't happening. And then I was getting very frustrated. Why isn't this incision closing, guys? Why? I need to move on. I need to get back to work. I need to function. Also, being alone, I got to take my own garbage out. I got to do things in the house. I have to do all of these things in life that no one
It
else
doesn't
can
stop.
do.
Yeah, life doesn't stop.
It does it right. And you're like, oh, well, keep doing what you're doing. And now I literally had such bad dermatitis from the tape that I was constantly having to use for the bandages, living with, gauze and tape and scissors and having to do all this and special instructions and not get this wet. And that, from, the infection started in May and now it's October. The rupture happened in February, everything. May is when I caught the official infection. June, the implant was out. October, here I'm still not even healed.
Oh,
And we
Joey,
did, you're right, we did
sorry.
all the right things that you couldn't prepare. I took the antibiotics.
Yeah, you did all the things
I
that the doctor
followed all the
ordered.
instructions. They scrubbed me down in surgery. The only thing I suspect sometimes, which I don't know if it's just my crazy head, is like, was there something left behind in there when they did the replacement? Or like, why? Why is it, because no one has given me clear answers because they don't really know either.
And that's even more frustrating too, because like sometimes you just want like the diagnosis or something, or it's closure in a way, right? And you not getting
You
that.
want answers.
Yeah, you want answers. It's incredibly frustrating and emotional for yourself. But I mean,
Very
I'm
much.
not trying to do this episode to scare anybody. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm not trying to fear monger anyone, but I'm just trying to give a real life example of what
Absolutely.
could happen, because I also think that's really important to talk about and to address. And people like yourselves, I haven't heard of many stories for folks that this might have happened to. So thank you
Thank
so
God.
much for your bravery.
Right?
Yeah, thank God. But
I haven't heard many either, too. So thank God.
yeah, but it's just really, really difficult to hear. But I'm hoping that, maybe I can send some people to your cam room, or like, people can tip more at least to help you, because it's also a big, big, big financial burden. But I want to commend you, Joey, for your bravery in coming on the show and speaking about this.
Thank you.
And sharing your story. But again, I do want to send people your way. So if you do have any socials and things where people can find you, now is the time to list them out. Where can we find you?
All right. So check me out on Twitter at Joey fucking Rose. And from there, you could click on all my links and it'll give you everything I'm on. It's the easiest way to find me. So it's at Joey fucking with no G Rose, R-O-S-E.
I love it. And I really hope, we can definitely send some good patrons your way. But thank you so much for joining me today, Joey.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure and
story.
so good to talk to you. And I'm glad I got to just give everybody some education on it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's it for this week's episode of Stripped by Sia. I hope you guys learned something today, especially a lot of you are using this episode as a resource. Doing your research, of course, do your research. I hope that this week and last week's episode really gave you a bit more clarity, a bit more insight, and hopefully has provided you with some education to make an informed decision if this is going to be right for you. Of course, ask questions, ask your doctor many questions, have a second, third, fourth opinion as well, and just know that there are risks involved. And yes, that this might actually happen to you as well. So hopefully this has provided a bit of perspective. That being said, if you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoyed what you're listening to, please consider rating us a 5-star review or whatever honest review that you would like on major podcast platforms. So I'm talking about Apple, which a lot of you listen on, as well as Spotify. There's also some fun questions. You can also participate and engage with the community there. And it is new episodes every single Sunday, dropping at midnight Pacific Standard Time. If you do want to get in touch with me, you can find me on Twitter, aka X, which is Stripped by Sia. You can also find me on Instagram. Come follow me there. I really need some help there. It's Stripped by Sia Podcast, which is on my Instagram. And then patreon.com if you want to financially support the show. It's patreon.com/stripped by Sia. And last but not least, an archive of all of our episodes since season 1. It is at strippedbysia.com. And don't forget, that is also where you can pitch me if you are wanting to be on the show. I'm still looking out for some guests to close out season 6 and maybe on to season 7. So stay tuned and we'll catch you all in for another episode next week. You're listening to Stripped by Sia, hosted, produced, and edited by Steph Sia. Music by Ted D. Graphic design by Maria Bellandarama, and photography by Ian Dabrin.